If you've watched the last video, you already know the headline claim. The Stoics believed virtue was the only real good in life. Everything else, money, health, your reputation, whether you're alive tomorrow, filed under indifferent. That's a nice sentence to say. It's a much harder thing to actually use, because virtue on its own is too abstract to act on. You can't wake up tomorrow and just be virtuous, the way you can wake up and go for a run. So the Stoics broke it down, not into vague sentiments, but into 4 specific, load-bearing components, each one built to handle a different kind of pressure life puts on you. Today we're taking each one apart properly, not the surface-level definitions you've probably already heard. The actual ancient breakdown, what Diogenes Laertius, Cicero, and the early Stoics themselves said these words were doing, down to the subparts most modern explanations skip entirely. For virtues, one underlying thing. Let's take them one at a time. Before we get into each virtue individually, there's a structural point worth understanding first, because it changes how you should hear everything that follows. The Stoics didn't think of these 4 as 4 separate personality traits, the way you might think of generous and funny as 2 unrelated qualities a person could have independently. They thought of virtue as one single, unified excellence of reason, and the 4 virtues were really that one excellence, tested against 4 different kinds of situations. Each virtue, in the old texts, is described as having its own particular subject matter, its own department, if you want to think of it that way. Courage deals with things that must be endured. Wisdom deals with what should or shouldn't be done, and with sorting the merely indifferent from the truly good or bad. The same logical structure applies to justice and temperance, each pointed at a different domain of life. Why does this matter? Because it means you can't actually have one of these without the others functioning properly underneath it. A person who's brave but not wise isn't virtuous. They're just reckless with good publicity. Hold that thought. We're coming back to it at the end because it's the single most important idea in this whole video. Let's start where the Stoics themselves usually started, because it's the virtue everything else depends on. The Greek word is phronesis, usually translated as practical wisdom or prudence, deliberately distinct from theoretical knowledge or cleverness. Diogenes Laertius, writing centuries later as a kind of ancient biographer of the philosophers, records the core definition simply: knowledge of what should and shouldn't be done, and knowledge of what's good, bad, or neither. Cicero's version, in his earlier work De Invention, lines up almost exactly. The knowledge of things that are good, bad, or neither good nor bad. Notice the 3-way split in both definitions. Not 2 categories, good and bad, but 3, good, bad, and indifferent. That 3rd category is doing enormous work in Stoic thought, and wisdom is specifically the skill of sorting things correctly into it. Most people's suffering in the Stoic diagnosis comes from misfiling something indifferent, a promotion, someone's opinion, a possession, into the good category, and then organizing their whole emotional life around protecting or chasing it. But the ancient Stoics didn't stop at that 3-way sort. Later thinkers, including Chrysippus, subdivided wisdom further into what's sometimes rendered as good counsel and understanding. The difference between correctly reasoning your way toward a decision in the moment versus having a deeper, settled grasp of how things actually work that informs your judgment before the moment even arrives. One is closer to problem solving. The other is closer to a well-built worldview quietly doing its job in the background. There's a finer layer still, worth including because it's genuinely useful. Wisdom isn't only about telling good from bad. It also governs how you rank things that are all technically indifferent against each other. Health and money are both indifferent, in the strict Stoic sense. Neither one is the good. But wisdom is what lets you reasonably judge that. In a given moment, protecting your health matters more than protecting your income, without contradicting the deeper principle that neither one is your actual goal in life. Wisdom, in other words, isn't a blunt instrument. It's a genuinely fine-grained rational skill, constantly recalibrating. Move to courage, Andrea, sometimes translated as fortitude, and the first correction to make is the one almost everyone gets wrong on the first pass. This is not the absence of fear. Cicero's definition is direct, the deliberate encountering of danger and the enduring of hardship. Deliberate is the operative word. Courage isn't a personality type that simply doesn't register fear. It's a choice, made while the fear is fully present, to act well anyway. Go one layer deeper, and the definition gets even more interesting. The Stoic writer Stoicius records courage defined as knowledge of what is genuinely terrible, what isn't, and what falls into neither category. Essentially, endurance guided by correct judgment, not blind toughness. That phrase is worth sitting with. Endurance guided by judgment. Courage, properly understood, is wisdom specifically applied to fear. It's not a separate raw material from wisdom. It's wisdom's output when the situation involves danger or hardship instead of an ordinary decision. This is also where the ancient sources give us a genuinely useful internal split. Diogenes Laertius records that the Stoics divided courage into two components, something like constancy or steadfastness on one hand, intention or vigor on the other. Picture those as two different jobs courage has to do. Constancy is the part that holds a position without breaking, the soldier who doesn't retreat, the person who doesn't cave under social pressure. Vigor is the more active half, the energy required to actually push forward into something difficult, not just withstand it passively. A person can have one without the other. Plenty of people can stubbornly hold a position without ever having the active drive to push into new, difficult territory, and plenty of people have bursts of aggressive energy without any steadiness to sustain it. Full courage, in the Stoic sense, needs both. Temperance, sophrosyne, sometimes rendered as moderation or self-control, is probably the most misunderstood of the four in modern usage because it gets flattened into simple restriction. Don't drink, don't overeat, don't indulge. Cicero's actual definition is more precise and more interesting than that. The well-regulated dominion of reason over lust and other improper affections of the mind. Read that carefully. It's not the absence of desire. It's reason ruling desire, which assumes the desire is still there, still real, and simply no longer in charge. This connects directly to the broader Stoic theory of emotion, which is worth explaining properly here because it clarifies what temperance is actually fighting against. The Stoics described certain emotional pulls, craving, for instance, as an irrational striving towards something wrongly judged to be good. Painful contraction of the soul, in their framework, comes from failing to get, or failing to avoid, something you've incorrectly filed as genuinely good or bad, rather than correctly seeing it as indifferent. Temperance is the virtue that keeps those miscalibrated pulls from actually steering your behavior, even while you still feel them. There's a quieter, secondary effect worth naming too. The old texts describe good order and a kind of natural decorum as following from temperance, meaning a temperate person's outward life tends to look organized, measured, and appropriate almost as a side effect, not because they were straining to look that way. That's a useful diagnostic, actually. If someone's outward life looks chaotic and reactive, that's often a visible symptom of an internal temperance problem, whether or not they'd label it that way themselves. And now the one the ancient Stoics themselves seemed to treat as first among equals, even though it's often listed last. There's a striking line of Stoic thought recorded in the sources: justice as the source of all the other virtues. The reasoning behind that claim is worth walking through slowly, because it's genuinely persuasive. Courage, without justice attached to it, is just aggression or recklessness aimed at whatever the courageous person happens to want. There's nothing in raw courage alone that points it toward good ends rather than bad ones. Wisdom that isn't shared with or applied on behalf of other people is just private cleverness, useful to its owner, perhaps, but not virtuous in the full sense the Stoics meant. Justice is what aims the other three virtues outward, towards something beyond the self. Cicero gives us the fullest ancient treatment of this virtue in a text called De Officiis on moral duties. His definition: justice as the principle that constitutes the bond of human society itself, the thing that makes a shared community of life even possible in the first place. His summary of what that requires in practice comes down to something close to this: do no harm to others, treat what's genuinely shared as shared, and what's privately owned as belonging to its owner. And remember, at the foundation of all of it, that human beings are not born for themselves alone, that people exist, in some meaningful sense, for the sake of other people, to do good for one another. Cicero elsewhere calls justice flatly the crowning glory of all the virtues. That's a strong claim, and it's worth noticing what it implies: a philosophy that's sometimes caricatured as a private, individual toughness project. Control your reactions, manage your own emotions, focus only on what's yours, actually places, at its structural peak, a virtue that's entirely about your obligations to other people. Stoicism was never meant to end at self-management. Justice is where all that internal work was always supposed to be aimed. Here's the idea we set aside earlier, and it's the one I'd actually want you to leave with if you remember nothing else from this video. The ancient Stoics were explicit that courage, stripped of the other virtues, particularly justice and wisdom, doesn't stay a virtue at all. It curdles into something else, into a vice wearing courage's clothing: recklessness, aggression, stubbornness mistaken for strength. Run that same test across all four, and the pattern holds everywhere. Courage without wisdom is recklessness. Action without correct judgment about what's actually worth enduring. Courage without justice is just forceful self-interest, sometimes even violence, with better branding. Temperance without wisdom becomes rigid self-denial for its own sake, discipline with no target worth having. Wisdom without courage becomes a person who correctly sees what's right and simply never acts on it, paralyzed by fear at the exact moment their judgment was needed. And justice, detached from wisdom, risks becoming a rigid rule following that mistakes the letter of fairness for the actual substance of it. This is why the four were never meant to be graded separately, like four unrelated subjects on a report card. They're four checks on each other, running simultaneously, all the time. The wise choice that requires courage to actually execute. The courageous act that needs justice to be aimed correctly. The temperance that needs wisdom to know what's actually worth restraining and what isn't worth restraining at all. Put together, what you actually have here isn't four separate personality traits to develop independently, like a video game character with four different skill bars to fill up. You have one underlying thing. Call it excellence of judgment or excellence of character, being tested from four different directions: by decisions, by danger, by desire, and by other people. Miss any one of the four, and the whole structure tends to lean and eventually fail, even if the other three look strong on their own. A courageous, temperate, wise person who treats other people badly isn't half virtuous. By the Stoics' own account, they're not virtuous at all, because justice was never an optional fourth ingredient added on top. It was the direction all the others were supposed to be pointed in from the start.